Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are having a super Saturday. Sorry about yesterday. I know that you missed me, but we are going to catch up for today. So, here's what we're going to learn today. We are going to learn about money. We're going to learn about place values. We're going to learn about perimeter and area, and then we are going to switch over to our Operation Saturday. And for this Operation Saturday, we are talking about the handy dandy subtraction. We're going to talk about the takeaways and how we borrow. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, you can comment below and I will answer them in the order that I received them, okay? All right, beautiful people, let's get started. Back to the basics. Money, dollar bills, place value 3-digit to 6-digit, and perimeter and area 2-digit. First up, we will be learning today how to count money with dollar bills, how to place values from 3-digit to 6-digit numbers, and how to find the perimeter and area of common shapes. All right, people, we're getting ready to talk about cash, the dollar bills. Woo! There are currently 7 types of dollar bills in circulation in the USA. We have the $1 bill, the $2 bill, the $5 bill, the $10 bill, the $20 bill, the $50 bill, and the current largest bill in circulation is the $100 bill, or how everyone else calls it, the Benjamins. Here is a fun fact. A long time ago, there used to be a $10,000 bill in circulation. Also a $500 bill, a $1,000 bill. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a $2,000 bill as well. So the reason why they stopped doing it is, of course, who carries a $10,000 bill around with them now? But now they're considered collector's items. So if you currently hold on to a $10,000 bill from way back in the day, make sure you hold on to it because it's a collector's item. Now, what is the best practice in counting? Of course, like I explained last week, counting starts from the largest and then go small. I prefer to start with the hundreds, 20s, 10s, 5s, and 1s. And I like to start high so that way when I do get low, I'm counting the ones down last. Also, another thing that I do for those who do this, I've seen a couple of people do it as well. I count my 50s after my 20s. The reason why I do that is because sometimes 5s go better with 5s. So I usually do, especially if it's one $50 bill, and I have more 20s than I do 50s. So I'll start with 100, then I'll count out my 20s, and then I'll add in my 50 and then go from 50 all the way to the 10s, the 5s, and the 1s. Now, if I have any 2s, I might throw them in there, but you have to make special requests for when you are doing 2s. So say, for instance, I have one $100 bill, I have one $50 bill, I have 5 20s, a 10, a 5, and a 1. So I would then count my 100, then I count my 20s, which would give me 200. Then I'll count my 50, which would put me at 250. And then I'll count my 10, which would put me at 260. My 5, which will put me at 265. And then my 1, which will put me at 266. So That is a good reference of counting. You can count it however you want, but I would recommend counting from large to small so that way you'll see the descending of your counting. All right, next up, place values, 3-digit to 6-digit. First up, hundreds. Hundreds are the 3 digits, which are the first set of 3 digits on the end of a number. They're the last 3 digits before a decimal. So anytime you're looking for the hundreds, know that if you're going from left to right of counting your numbers, they're always the last 3 numbers in a large number set. Or if it's just hundreds, is initially all 3 numbers. Next up are thousands. Thousands come from 4 digits to 6 digits. And it's the first comma in place values. And what I mean by that is if we're going based on the original place value patterns of learning how to do the ones place, the tens place, and the hundreds place, if we're going from that method, know that after the hundreds is your first comma, which starts the thousands place. Now, the thousands, of course, goes in 1, 10, and 100, just like the ones, the tens, and the hundreds place. But instead of it just being ones and tens and hundreds, it's 1,000s, 10,000s, 100,000s. Next up, finally, but not the least, are millions. Millions are 7 digits. Most people, when they say 6-digit numbers, they'll immediately think of millions. Well, actually, millions are 7-digit numbers. And it's the second comma in the place values. So right after the thousands, you have the millions place. And you start counting them based on how many commas. So in case you have a number and you're wondering how big is this number or what place is this number, always pay attention to your commas. Commas always indicate when the next level of place value is happening. So the first place scenario would be the ones, the tens, and the hundreds. Those are the first primary place values. Then you have your first comma. Then you have all of your 1,000 places of ones, tens, and hundreds. Then your next comma will be the millions. And then one more comma will also put you at the billions. So depending on how many commas that you have, those commas will indicate what place value you have in all. So in order to know which place values you have in total, always count your commas. Great place value resources. Of course, you can use a place value chart. You can use counting chips, cubes, rods, squares, and blocks. The cubes are ones units. Rods are tens place units. Squares are 100 place units. And blocks are 1,000 place units. I have yet to find something that'll put me in the million unit. When I do find it, I promise I will let you guys know. Also, there's puzzle pieces. So if you decide you want to make your own puzzle, you literally can print off any blank puzzle piece sheet. And with that blank puzzle piece sheet, cut up your puzzle pieces, and what you can do is take your number, make different numbers on each puzzle piece, so that way you can either make a larger number or a smaller number and then go based off place values. So say for instance, I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are my numbers on my puzzles. Then I would ask my child, what place value would the 3 be? What place value would the 6 be? What place value would the 1 be? and just go through the place values just to get them familiarized what each place value represent. Also, worksheets. I I paste a lot of worksheets at the bottom of our live. So if you want to work on with your child with the place values, the money, and also with the different shapes for perimeter and area, you can click on those links below. Also, online interactive games. Some of the websites that I provided in this live, they do have interactive games that allow you to see and hear and listen on how to do place values. And that way, the child knows, okay, every number has its place. What is the value of each? All right, next up, perimeter and area, common 2D shapes. Perimeter. What is the perimeter? Perimeter is adding all sides of an object. And this is based on the outside lengths of each object. So basically what you're doing is taking a shape and basically cutting and pulling it apart to measure its total length. So for instance, a triangle, has 3 sides. So if the triangle had outer length sides are 3, 4, and 5, you would take each of those sides and add them together, like the example shows in the picture to the right. So the perimeter equals the side MN plus the side NP plus the side PM. And what you're doing is literally adding all the sides together. Some of them, because they are of equal length, you can multiply by 4, like the rhombus, also the square. Also, if you pay attention to the rectangle, you have 2 lengths and 2 widths. And so what they did was, instead of you going length plus width plus length plus width plus length plus width, what they did was say, hey, I have 2 lengths and 2 widths. So 2 times the length plus 2 times the width gives me the perimeter of this rectangle. All right, next up we have the area. Area is calculating the surface of an object, and it's also based on the inside space of an object. So if you look at the rectangle, the outer lengths or the black lines, those are considered the perimeter. The green space is what we're getting for the area. How much space does this rectangle take up? And it's always in square units. It's based off of square units. So the green space area would be the length times the width. And what you're doing is finding out, okay, how much space in a square footage or square units does this shape take up? And the best way to find the perimeter and area, of course, you can use a ruler to some of these and literally measure them out. And once you figure out the numbers, then you can work with the formulas that are on both sides of the page, whether you're doing the area or the perimeter. Also, a geoboard. A geoboard is where you take it's a board of squares and knobs. And with that board of squares and knobs, you can take make different shapes with rubber bands. And those rubber bands can teach you how to do squares, triangles, parallelograms, rectangles, rhombuses, anything of sharp edges. The only thing you cannot do with a geoboard is a circle. Circles are very different. Circles have no edges. They're all one side and it's continuous and it's a curve. So to find a circle, to find the area or perimeter of the circle, you must always find its radius or diameter, because for the circumference, which is also the perimeter of a circle, the circumference is 2 times r, or pi d. And the reason why pi d is pi times the diameter, because the radius is 2 times of the diameter, or the diameter is 2 times the radius, and the radius is half of the diameter. So either way, either one of those will help you find the circumference. And then in order to find the circumference, if you have a diameter, say for instance your diameter is 10 and you want to find the area of that circle, well, we know that half of the diameter is the radius. So once I divide the diameter by 2, which would be 10 divided by 2, now my radius is 5. So once I find out what the radius is, I square it or multiply it to itself twice, 5 times 5, and then multiply it by pi. And either you can leave it at 25 pi, or you can multiply it by pi to get your full answer. All right, beautiful people. If you have any questions or concerns and you want to rewind about money, place values, and the perimeter area, the link for the YouTube page is below, and you can use it to rewind for that part of the live. Next up, we are going to discuss subtraction. What is subtraction? What does subtraction look like? How can you recognize subtraction in word problems? All right, beautiful people, let's get started. This is the Operation Saturday portion, and for this, I am going to go over take away and borrow, or what I call T and B, and what's the word. We will always cover what's the word every Saturday so that you guys understand how to recognize each operation in word problems. First thing first is, what is subtraction? Subtraction is taken away from one group and giving to another, or simply just taken away from a group or number of things. What tools will help with subtracting? Of course, flashcards, math drills, or math races, which are timed with simple math facts. You also have tangible objects. What I really recommend for tangible objects are counting chips, especially the rainbow kind. They're transparent and they're very colorful. And of course, you know, a lot of colors will help you to determine which goes where. And they're good for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. But I definitely love using them for subtraction because it allows me to identify and show how to pull these numbers apart. So say for instance, I have 5 red chips and I place the 5 red chips in front of my student. So once I place the 5 chips in front of my student, then what I will do is say, hey, right now you have 5 chips. If I take 2 of these chips away, how many chips do you have left? immediately or instantly it should show that, hey, if I have 5 and I took away 2, the student should have 3 chips left. Of course, you can find those beautiful chips either on Amazon, any teacher outlet store, or you can also find it at Walmart. And it never hurts to check out Target as well. Also, interactive online games and offline math games. These can easily be done with rolling of dice, or you can take the online interactive games for certain websites and they literally show you racing games, basketball games, Barbie doll, cheerleading, gymnastics, any type of game anything that your child is interested in. There is a math game that allows you to interact and get them to understand how math works with their favorite character or game. Me personally, for the offline math games, I always like to get a pair of dice, and with those dice, take those dice and shake them up, and the numbers that I get, I use them for adding, subtracting, and dividing and multiplying. So what I can do is say for instance, I shake the dice and the numbers I get for the dice is 6 and 3. So I can either add it, subtract it, multiply, or divide. So today, since we're learning on subtraction, if I roll and I get a 6 and a 3, what I'm going to do is take that 6 and subtract it from the 3. And knowing that 6 minus 3 is 3, I will write 6 minus 3 equals 3. And so you always want to do the rolling dice game whether you're taking your marker and scratching off different numbers that you're trying to find with your dice, or you can use them as quick reminders of how to subtract within the number 6 or the number 12, depending on how many dice you use. Also, worksheets. Again, I have placed below subtraction worksheets from all great resources. So if you want to have different worksheets that you want to work on with your student or your child, you can use those worksheets. And it's math drills, dad worksheets, Math Aid. Math Aid is my favorite one because it allows you to customize how many the child can do and what numbers you would like to put in for your worksheet. So say for instance, I want 9 problems, and with those 9 problems, I want to subtract within the number 20. It'll stop at the number 20. It won't go past 20. And then say for instance, I want to add in decimals or anything like that. Math Aid is a great tool for customizing your worksheets. Now, my favorite part is what words or phrases to recognize for when you are subtracting in word problems. Well, here is my handy dandy chart. And with this chart, you are able to see the different words and phrases that'll help you understand subtracting. Perfect. So now, key words that will help you with subtraction. Decrease by. So decrease by is, of course, a decrease means getting smaller. Main thing about subtraction, you will realize with it, you are always getting a smaller piece or smaller fraction or a smaller number. You are always looking for your numbers to decrease and be smaller if you are subtracting. So decrease by basically says, okay, it was once this size, now it has gotten smaller. So does minus, less than, the difference between. Difference always a key factor word of letting you know that you're subtracting. This person has more than, this person has less than, this person has fewer than. How many more, how much more, how many are left, what remains. Words that are ending in ER, such as higher, longer, faster, heavier, larger, shorter, slower, farther. Anything that is descriptor of how much less than does this person run, or how much farther does this person go compared to the other person. Always know that you're in the position of taking away and subtraction. So decreased by, this one is, the example for this one is the population of whales decreased by 400 in last year. So say for instance, you had 1,200 whales, and the next sentence says you have 1,200 whales starting off, and then the population of those whales decreased by 400 within the last year. How many whales do we currently have? So of course you would take the 1,200, subtract it from the 400, which will leave you with 800 whales in total. Fair enough? So then minus. She had $10 minus the amount she spent on the drink. How much did she have in all? So say for instance, she had $10 and then she spent let's say $1 on the drink. So then how much did she have in all? In my head, it's like, okay, if she had $10 minus the dollar that she spent, how much did she have in all? Originally that would have been a addition problem. So originally she had $11. So if I wanted to flip this around, I would say, okay, she had $11 minus the amount she spent on the drink. How much did she have left over? So if she had $11 and she spent $1 for the drink, or minus the amount she spent for the drink, which was $1, how much did she have left? That would be the $10. All right, next up, of course, is the less. The less says, okay, she had 5 cards, less the 2 she gave her brother. How many did she have in all? So that is considered an addition question. So she had 5 in her hand, and then less the 2 she gave her brother. How many did she have in all? All right, so if she had 5, and then that's less the 2 she gave her brother, how many did she have in all? So originally she had 7. So if she originally had 7, less the 2 she gave her brother, she now has the 5 cards. So if I were to reword this, I would say, hey, she had 7 cards, less the 2 she gave her brother. How many does she have now, or how many does she have left? And I would say, after I take my 7, take away 2, that would be 5. So I would highly recommend that you guys look at these words and copy them down. If you have any questions, or if you need me to email them, place your email below and I'll definitely get this chart to you, along with all the other keyword and phrases charts, such as addition, multiplication, and division. So that way you know the keywords that you're looking for when you're subtracting, multiplying, adding, and dividing. Now, I ask that you guys excuse my handwriting in advance because I am going to show you a very simple way on how to subtract, especially when you are trying to borrow and take away at the same time. So say for instance, I have 22 and I'm taking away 9. Well, we know that 2 and 9 are based on subtraction values. 2 is smaller than 9, so therefore you would have to borrow in order to have it subtract. So, how do we subtract the 2 from the 9? Borrowing is exactly like this. You cross out your 2, you cross out your other 2. So to borrow from the first one, you'll take away 1 from the first 2, which will leave you with 1. And then you will add 10 to the second 2, which will leave you with 12. So literally you are taking 10 from the first number and adding it to the second number in order to subtract your 2 from the 9. So 12 from 9 leaves me with 3. And since I have 1 left over, I'll bring down my 1. Another example, say for instance, I have 35 minus 17. Again, if your one side where the 5 is smaller than the 7, and since the 5 is on top of the 7, we will need to borrow. So always remember when you're subtracting, you always subtract from right to left, starting with the ones and then going to the next place value. So first thing is trying to subtract the 5 from the 7. Of course, you cannot subtract 5 from 7 currently because 5 is smaller than 7. So how do I subtract? I borrow. So I cross out my 5, I cross out my 3, I borrow 10 from the 3 or 30 and change my 3 into 2. And then once I borrow the 10, then I will add the 10 to the 5, which gives me 15. So now I can subtract 15 from 7 instead of just 5 from 7. So 15 from 7 leaves 8. 2 from 1 leaves 1. So all subtraction is, especially when the ones place has a smaller number on top and a bigger number on the bottom. When you are borrowing, you're simply taking 10 from the first number and you're adding 10 to the last number. Three-digit subtraction. Say, for instance, your number is 2, 0, and 4. And you're subtracting 57. Now, how can we borrow in order to get the 4 to become a 14? Most people, when you get to this point, is like, okay, how do I borrow so that way the 0 part is not just 0. So the first thing you would do is you're going to borrow from the first number. The first number is going to become a 1. Then you add 10, because all subtraction is borrowing 10 and adding 10. I borrow 10, I add 10. So to the 0, if I add 10 to 0, that is 10. So now, after I've borrowed 10 from the 2 to make my 0 10, I now must borrow 10 again, or borrow 1 to change the 4 into a 14. So now if I'm borrowing 10 from the 10, it becomes now 9. Or put it this way, the 1 from the 2, I borrowed 100, and I put 100 over the 5. Then I borrowed 10 from that 100, which made my 10 now become a 90. And then I added 10 to my 14, to my 4, which gave me my 14. So literally all you are doing is subtracting 1, adding 10, subtracting 1, adding 10 when you're borrowing. 14 minus 7 gives me 7. 9 minus 5 gives me 4. And of course, there's nothing to subtract the 1 from, so I bring down my 1. One more example. Let's go for 3. $3.20. And we're going to subtract 154. Now, if you remember my rule for borrowing, take away 1, add 10. Take away 1, add 10. So, first number, because in order for you to borrow for the 0, you're going to have to start at the first number for now. So, for the 3, I take away 1, which gives me my 2. Then I add 10 to the 2, which gives me 12. I take away 1 from the 12, which gives me 11, and add 10, which gives me 10 for my 0. Simple enough? So then 10 minus 4 gives me 6. 11 minus 5 gives me 6. And 2 minus 1 gives me 1. Now, say for instance, you have a 3-digit number and all you have to do is borrow from one number. Literally, all you have to do is just borrow from that one number. So say for instance, I have 460 1, and I'm subtracting 342. When you get ready to borrow like this, especially since the ones place has a 1 over the 2, you only have to borrow from one number, and that's the tens place. So cross out my 6, that changed into a 5, and because I'm taking away 1 from the 6, and I'm adding 10 to the 1, which gives me 11. 11 minus 2 gives me 9. 5 minus 4 gives me 1. And 4 minus 3 again gives me 1, which makes my total answer 119. All right, class. Does anyone have any questions? No questions are too small or insignificant because all questions are very important and significant. So, if you have any questions, this is the live tutoring session of our Spectacular Saturday. Any questions, please comment below. Other than that, I hope you are having a fantastic and spectacular Saturday. I'm Miss Chris, and of course, I am here to help. Also, if you are wanting to see the earlier portion with money, place values, as well as the perimeter and area, that was at the beginning of the video. I do have the YouTube link at the bottom of the live. If you click on it, you'll be able to rewind into YouTube and see the money, place value, and perimeter portion of this live session. Other than that, any questions of math, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, fractions, time, whatever you have, I'm here to help. Again, I hope you are having a spectacular Saturday. Let's win big today. Hello, everyone that are just tuning in. If you have any math questions, this is the live tutoring portion of our live session. If you have any questions, please comment below and I'll be happy to assist. Any adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, time, anything, whatever you got, I can help for it. So anything up to pre-calculus, I got you. If it's calculus, I'll Google it and break it down for you. Other than that, I hope you are having a fantastic and spectacular Saturday. Hopefully, it's bringing you joy and laughter. Other than that, I look forward to hearing from you. All right, guys. Looks like I got a question. It says, I struggle with subtracting fractions and mixed numbers. Can you show me a way to subtract those? Now, that is a really good question. Give me one quick second so I can pull up my handy dandy whiteboard. Move this beautiful baby out the way so we can get started. Okay, subtracting fractions. First things first is that you always make sure that you are subtracting from biggest to smallest. So say for instance, you have 1/2 and 1/4. And the question is find the difference of the two. Well, in fractions subtraction, the smaller the number, the bigger the number is. So 1/2 is considered bigger than 1/4. The reason being is, say for instance, I have a cookie compared to me having another cookie, and I cut it in 4 pieces. Now, the half that I shade compared to the 4th, as you can see, 1/2 is bigger than 1/4. So that's why whenever you are subtracting fractions, know that the smaller denominator is actually the bigger number. So the smaller the denominator number, the bigger the piece, or the bigger the part of that fraction. So now, what does 1/2 minus 1/4 look like? What 1/4. Now, when you are subtracting or adding denominators that are not alike, you have to get them to where they are alike in order to subtract or add them together. So we know that both 1/2 and 1/4, or 1/2 and 1/4, both of those numbers have different denominators. In order to add and subtract, they must have the same type of denominator, meaning the same number on the bottom. So how finding the least common multiple and the greatest common factor. So now the question is, do we use LCM or GCF? Well, if you remember earlier in the week, LCM, or lowest common multiple, that is the number that you use when you're adding and subtracting. Greatest common factor comes into play when you are reducing or simplifying one fraction. So what is the greatest or the least common multiple between 1/2 and 1/4? So to find that, you can easily say, okay, I'm going to count by 2's, which is 8, and then 4's, 4, 8, 12, 16. The least or smallest number between 2 and 4, of course, is. So now that I know the least common multiple between 2 and 4, I will use that to start my new fractions. Now, what if you already have your least common multiple for one of the fractions. Like since 4 is between both of them, the only one that would need to change would be the 2. The 4 or the 1/4, it would remain the same. So now, how do I change the 2 into a 4? Well, I divide 4 by the denominator, which is 2, and then that answer multiplied by the numerator, which is 1. So 4 divided by 2 gives me 2, and then 2 times 1 gives me 2. So now my half fraction, or 1/2, has now become 2/4. Once I've changed it from 1/2 to 2/4, I now can subtract. So 2/4 minus 1/4 will give me 1/4. So anytime you have fractions, but they have unlike or different denominators, you would need to find the least common multiple between the two in order to subtract or add them to each other. Also, you asked about subtracting mixed numbers. What does that look like, especially if your fraction on top is smaller than the fraction on the bottom? So say, for instance, I have 4 and 1/4 minus 3 and 3/4. All right. Since the fraction on top is smaller than the fraction on the bottom, how do I subtract that? Well, just like we borrowed from the different numbers in order to add on to the last number, same rule apply. So to make 1/4 bigger than 3/4, I would need to borrow a whole to add to my fraction. So I'm going to borrow 1 whole from the 4, which gives me 3. And I'm going to add a whole, which plus 4/4, because remember, 1 whole in fraction form is the same number on top as well as the same number on the bottom, because 4/4, 3/3, 2/2, all of those numbers equal 1 whole. So I'm going to add the whole to the 4th, and now my 4th becomes 5/4. So now I can subtract my 4 and 1/4 from my 3 and 3/4. So now the 4 became a 3, the 1/4 became 5/4 by adding a whole, or 4/4, to my 4th that I already had. So 4/4 plus 1/4 gives me 5/4. Now I can subtract. So 5/4 minus 3/4 gives me 2/4. And of course, 3 minus 3 leaves me with 0. So my answer is 2 over 4. Now, if you remember earlier in the week, we learned how to do reduce our fractions. But here's a quick reminder of how you reduce the fractions. So, of course, reducing and simplifying means getting it to the smallest term possible, meaning something about the top number and the bottom number, they have a number in common or a factor in common that will allow them to get smaller other than the number 1. So, what does that look like? To find the factors of 2, I simply want to know what times what gives me 2. And the only thing that gives me 2 when dealing with factors is 1 times 2. Next up, we have 4. What multiply together gives me 4? Well, you have 1, 2, and 4. Now, 1 times 4 gives me 4, and 2 times 2. I don't like how that looks, so let me try that again. Better. Okay, so reason why I did not write 2 twice, because 2, of course, is the same number. As it being a factor of 4, you only have to write it once. So say, for instance, we were doing the factors of 9, then I would do 1, 3, 9, because 3 times 3 gives me 9. I only have to write it once. So now, the greatest common factor between 2 and 4, of course, is the number 2. So that means I'm going to divide both numbers by 2. And 2 divided by 2, or what times 2 gives me 2, is 1. And 4 divided by 2, or what times 2 gives me 4, is 2. And this allows me to reduce or simplify my numbers to its smallest, simplest, lowest form. Great question. Thank you. All right. Anyone else have any more questions? If so, this is still our live tutoring session. If you have any questions, please comment them below. I am here to help with all your mathematical needs. Again, this is Miss Chris, and I hope you're having a spectacular Saturday. Hello and welcome. If you're just now tuning in, I am currently in the middle of the live tutoring session. If you have any math questions, please comment them below. If you are wanting to see the Operation Saturday, the money, dollar bills, the place values for three to six digits, or if you're looking to see the perimeter and area part of this live, there is a link in the description of this live below for the YouTube page. You can click on the YouTube page and rewind it back. If you're already on the YouTube page, you can easily drag it back to the beginning, and that way you can catch the money for dollar bills, place values for three digits to six digits, as well as the perimeter and area for two-dimensional shapes, and also the Operation Saturday information. If you are needing any of this information, the lives will be saved to my Facebook as well as my YouTube page. So if you're subscribed to the page, you'll easily get a notification of when I'm going live, and the videos will be saved along with all of the links for the worksheets that I placed on here. So again, I am here to help. We want to make sure our kids get all that they can and give it a go, because guess what? The number one subject that always is a hindrance for the next grade level is, of course, math. Reading, definitely. Math, they're neck and neck. And so, whatever I can do to help make sure that our children are understanding the basics of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, I am here to help. So, other than that, this is Miss Chris. If you have any questions, again, you can comment below. Hopefully, you are having a wonderful and fantastic, spectacular Saturday. Hello, hello, hello. Again, we are 15 minutes past the last part of the hour of our live tutoring session. If you have any questions, you can comment them below. Also, my handy dandy whiteboard that I've been using and drawing on, you can get it. As I was saying, because I lost my connection, you can get it from Microsoft and it is free. And so if you are wanting to learn with do any learning or any type of gradual math facts, you can use the whiteboard, especially if you have the Microsoft Word. I know that for my computer, I have a PC. And so if you are a PC user, they should have the whiteboard available for all Word Microsoft users. If you have a MacBook, I will have to look into that for you, but I think you guys also have the whiteboard as well. And so easily can go on Microsoft.com, search for the whiteboard, download it. It is completely, you don't have to pay anything for it, and you literally can use it for all of your learning needs, whether it's word for the day for your reading or for any of your math facts saying, hey, or your to do list that you need to do for the day. Easily can use that. And you can add pictures to it, you can add graphics to it, you can add word text to it, as well as audio if you would like. So, again, I'm Miss Chris. I'm still here for a live tutoring session. Any questions, you can comment them below. Other than that, have a spectacular Saturday. All right, guys, we have another question. Oh, this is a good one. Could you do an example of perimeter and area? I surely can. All right, let's get started. Say, for instance, I have a triangle. Now, perimeter perimeter. Perimeter, of course, is the adding of all the outer sides. So, say for instance, I have a side length of 4, 7, and 9. Perimeter says I add all of those sides together. So 4 plus 7 plus 9. 4 plus 7, that gives me 11, plus 9 gives me 20. So whenever you are doing the perimeter of any shape, all you are doing is adding all the numbers together to get your perimeter. Simple enough? Now, take down the banner so you can see the problem. Okay. Now, the area typically looks like this. Okay, so whenever you're dealing with the area, you are finding out how much space is the shape taking up in its current dimension. So for 2D or two-dimensional shapes, they always multiply these numbers together in order to get the area. So the area of a triangle is always half the base times the height. And you literally can maneuver the numbers however you want, only because it's multiplication. So no matter if you go forward or backwards, multiplying these numbers together, you'll get the same answer. So now, half the base times height is the area of a triangle. For this particular triangle, half times 9 times 4. Now, for me, what I would do is multiply the whole numbers to each other first and then multiply the fraction. So 9 times 4 gives me 36. And then 1/2 of 36, or 1/2 times 36, that gives me 18, because half of 36 is 18, or 36 divided by 2, or 1/2 times 36. Either one, the answer will still be 18. So whenever you're doing the area, know that you are multiplying. Whenever you are doing the perimeter, you are adding. Perimeter is adding all the numbers, all the sides, outer sides together. Area is taking the two numbers inside, or the inside numbers, and multiplying them together to get the maximum space coverage from the inside that the shape takes up. All right. That was a really good question. All right, guys, if you have any more questions, you can comment below. Any math questions, all of them are important and they are very significant. So, of course, comment below. Other than that, I hope you are having a spectacular Saturday. All right, beautiful people. If you are just now tuning in, we are within the last 20 minutes of the live tutoring session. So, of course, if you have any questions, you can comment them below. All questions are important, nothing is insignificant. So, if you have any questions, please comment them below. If not, I look forward to hearing from you at a later time, and I hope you are having a spectacular Saturday. We have another question, guys. It says, how do you count the 50s after 20s? You must have just reviewed the video. Okay, this is how you count 50s after 20s, especially if you only have one $50 bill. That is, I usually count my 50s after my 20s, especially if I only have one $50 bill. So this is how I would normally do it. Of course, you can do it however you want. This is my counting method. Hopefully, it helps you with your counting as well, especially if you have one $50 bill. So, say for instance, you have one $100 bill. You have a 50. You have 5 20s. You have 2 10s. 1 5 and 3 1s. So the first thing I normally do is, of course, count my 100 because my 100 always goes first. So I have 100 plus the 5 20s. 5 20s equal 100, which gives me 200. Okay, so then I add my 50, which gives me 250, plus my 2 10s, which is 20, and that gives me 270, plus my 5, that gives me 275, plus, of course, my 3 ones, that'll give me $278. Again, you can count it however you want to, but this is what I consider the easiest way to count money when you have a $50 bill. Because usually, and I find it interesting because I used to struggle with counting 50s into my money. And so I had to come up with a method that helped me reorganize how I count money from hundreds to ones. Of course, you can easily go from hundreds to ones from the biggest descending down to the smallest. So of course you can do 100 plus the 50 plus the 20s, the 10s, 5s, and the 1s. For me, I always move the 50 after the 20, so that way I've got all the even numbers in the 10s added together before I add the odd number, if that makes sense. But great question. So again, if you're counting and you have one $50 bill or any odd number of $50 bills, I strongly would recommend to go ahead and add the even numbers together, like the hundreds and the 20s. Add those together first, then start adding the odd number portion of money, such as 50. 50s are evens, but its tens place is an odd number. And so I always try to add all the even tens place numbers together before I start adding the odd numbers. And of course, here's my example again for those who are still wanting and needing to see what that looks like. Again, guys, thank you so much for all of your questions. Again, no question is insignificant. All math questions are important. So if you have any questions, I do recommend that you comment below and let me help you because I am here to help. Other than that, of course, I'm Miss Chris. If you have any questions, please comment them below. Other than that, I hope you are having a wonderful and spectacular Saturday. All right, beautiful people, as we wrap up this live, know that it has been fantastic in helping you for all of your mathematical questions and needs. If you have any additional questions outside of the live, you can inbox me, you can DM me, you can also text me at 205-542-5062, 205-542-5062. Also, next week is for my fifth and my sixth graders. So, if you are wanting to learn the key components for fifth and sixth grade, please make sure that you tune in next week. Also, next week, we are going through Operation Saturday, multiplication. That will be we don't die, we multiply, because one of the greatest tools and biggest weaknesses is in multiplication. But once you learn how to multiply, you can then go on to doing better and greater things, because if you do not know how to multiply, majority of the formulas that you do know will be obsolete. So, if you have any questions, of course, you can IM me, inbox me, DM me, or text me again at 205-542-5062. Today has been a spectacular Saturday. I look forward to hearing from you guys. Again, I am Miss Chris. I hope you had a fantastic time. Thank you for tuning in to Mathematics for You Summer Enrichment Program, where we are changing mindsets one problem at a time. Have a blessed day. Enjoy your Saturday. Bye bye.